Welcome to 21st Sports 2015 Season Preview for the Oakland Raiders. We're going to go over the roster, and we're going to go over the regular season schedule and make predictions for every single game in the regular season. But let's start off with the roster. And returning under center is Derek Carr for his sophomore campaign. He had a really good rookie year last year, as he threw for 3,270 yards and he had 21 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And last year when he did that, his number one receiver was Andre Holmes in terms of receiving yards, with 693 at 4 touchdowns. And now Holmes is 5th on the depth chart, as they've added a lot of weapons at receiver. As they drafted Amari Cooper, they brought in Michael Crabtree. They still have Streeter, Roberts, and Holmes, so there's going to be plenty of targets for Derek Carr to distribute the ball to, not to mention the running back Latavius Murray. Latavius, he had some big games last year, and I think he's going to build on that success and should have a good year. And they got a great fullback, one of the best fullbacks in all of football, in Marcel Reese. And they also Michael Rivera at tight end, who's really good at catching the ball. He had a breakout year last year. And I think that the Raiders are going to have a very potent offense, and the West is wide open. And I think they have a real shot at making a run for it. So let's look at their defense. And on defense, on the ends, you got Justin Tuck, and they're moving Khalil Mack up to defensive end. He was a linebacker last year. And then in the middle, they added Dan Williams. They also got Justin Ellis. Also on the end, they drafted Mario Edwards Jr. And then at linebacker, you got Ray Armstrong. What you know about Ray? And then on the other outside linebacker, Malcolm Smith. Of course, he's a Super Bowl champion, as he was with the Seattle Seahawks when they won a couple years ago. He made that huge play. And so then in the middle, they brought in Curtis Lofton, as he came over from the Saints. And he's one of a few additions that have solidified this defense, in my opinion. And then when you look at the corners, you got DJ Hayden and TJ Carey. They're both young, but they've got the veteran Charles Woodson, who is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and most people who know football. And so he's going to be a free safety. He led the team in tackles last year. Charles Woodson had 112 tackles, and he also led the team in interceptions with 4 interceptions. So with him free to roam around the secondary, the secondary should improve, and, they should get some pretty good play out of those young guys on the corners. And they also brought in Nate Allen to play strong safety from the Eagles. So they made some good additions. I like the way that their defense looks, and I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect. Let's look at the special teams. And at punter, you have Marquette King, and at kicker, Sebastian Janikowski, the biggest kicker the NFL has ever seen, and he can kick it as far as any kicker ever has kicked it. He might kick a 70-yarder one day, you never know, but he can kick 70 yards, before the game without the linemen there in the way and everything on both sides. Without the defensive line there to have to worry about, he can kick the ball a mile. But anyway, he's one of the more accurate kickers too. He's a guy that usually you're going to pick in your fantasy. Anyway, doing the return duties, we got Tawan Jones and TJ Carey returning the punts. So that's how things look for their roster. I think they actually have a really solid team. Derek Carr actually guaranteed that they would win the division this year. And I actually think that's not that far of a stretch. I think it's a very real possibility. I think that the Broncos are finally going to fall off. They're going to be the team in the basement this year, and it's going to be the Chiefs, Raiders, and Chargers battling it out in the West. All right, so now let's go over the schedule. And actually, I had already previously recorded this, but the audio was lost. So let's see if we can actually have this audio not just go off into the realms of I don't even know where. But let's start off week 1, September 13th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern kickoff at home against the Bengals. And I believe the Raiders can beat the Bengals in this game. The Bengals are going to be one of the toughest teams in the AFC, but this one's in Oakland. And I really think the Raiders are going to surprise some people right out of the gate. since September 2nd, September 20th, 4 o'clock kickoff, second straight home game, this one against the Ravens, and it's in Oakland, as I said, and I think that they'll beat the Ravens. The Ravens, I think, are overrated coming into the season. I understand why, because they do have a lot of talent, but the addition of Trustman is going to make their offense just fall right apart, and I believe that Woodson should get a couple of picks here in this game, and the Raiders will win. So week 3, September 27th, Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. They're going to be in Cleveland to face the Browns, and I believe they will beat the Browns. The Browns are a team in constant turmoil as their front office just keeps making bad moves, which screws over an otherwise talented team. But the Raiders, they're heading in the right direction. Jack Del Rio is the new head coach, is going to have their defense on point, and I believe they'll win this game on the road against the Browns. It's now week 4, October 4th, another 1 o'clock kickoff in the Midwest on the road for the second straight week in a row against the Chicago Bears here in week 4. And I believe they can beat the Bears on the road. I think the Bears defense won't be able to handle Derek Carr and his new weapons. So then week 5, October 11th, back at home in Oakland, their first division rivalry game. This one a 4:25 kickoff time. All these times are Eastern. So against the Broncos in Oakland, I believe they can beat them. Peyton is pretty much done. You know, he's had a long run, but he's reached the end of his career. And Derek Carr, you know, it's just his sophomore year. It's kind of a passing of the torch here in this game. So you see a future Hall of Famer and a player just beginning his career. So week 6 is the bye week, and at this point they'd be 5-0 headed into the bye week by my estimations. It's now week 7, October 25th, 4 o'clock kickoff in San Diego, their second straight rivalry game. Of course, this one is on the road against the Chargers. And in San Diego, I think the Chargers are going to win this one. The Chargers and the Chiefs and the Raiders, I believe, will be battling that out for that top spot in the AFC West. I believe the Broncos are finally going to fall off. It's now week 8, November 1st, 4 o'clock kickoff at home against the Jets. And I believe they will beat the Jets. The Jets are going to struggle this year. They have issues at quarterback. The Raiders, though, they've got a really good quarterback in Derek Carr, and I think they can win this game. It's now week 9, November 8th. They're headed to Pittsburgh for a 1 o'clock kickoff against the Steelers, and I believe the Steelers win this one. It's in Pittsburgh, and I think that's going to give them the advantage. The Steelers are going to put up a lot of points, and it's going to be tough to contain them, especially at Heinz Field. It's now week 10, November 15th. 4 o'clock kickoff back home against the Vikings. I believe they'll beat the Vikings. The Vikings are a young team. You know, the Raiders have a lot of youth as well, but I think that they can beat the Vikings at home. It's now week 11, November 22nd, 1 o'clock kickoff on the road against the Detroit Lions. The first of 2 road games in a row in this short little stretch here. And I believe in Detroit they'll lose to the Lions. The Lions have a really tough defense, and I believe their offense is going to be better with the addition of Amir Abdullah. And it should be a close game, but I think that they lose this one on the road. Then in week 12, November 29th, their second straight road game, this one in Tennessee against the Titans, 1 o'clock kickoff. And I believe they win this game against the Titans. You know, the Titans are a team that's got a lot of, you know, holes. Their defense is kind of suspect, and they don't really have a running game that's established. And Mariota's a rookie, so it'd be kind of interesting to see Mariota versus Carr, as they're both 2 up-and-coming young quarterbacks. It's in week 13, December 6th, 4 o'clock kickoff back in Oakland against their division rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is their first game against Kansas City all the way in week 13. This is a classic rivalry matchup between these two teams to go back to the AFL. And I believe the Raiders will beat the Chiefs in Oakland. It's in week 14, December 13th, they face the Broncos for the second time, this one in Denver. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff, and I believe that they will beat the Broncos for the second straight time this year and sweep the series against last year's AFC West champions. So then week 15, December 20th, they're going to be back home against the Packers. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff. This is going to be a tough game. The Packers are going to be the class of the league. They usually are, and this year is going to be no exception. So I believe that the Packers win this one. Then week 16, December 24th, Christmas Eve, their first and only primetime game of the entire year, Thursday night football. and it's against the Chargers. And so I had them losing to the Chargers in San Diego in Week 7, but here in Week 16, I have them beating San Diego and splitting the season series with the Chargers. So then in Week 17, January 3rd, 1 o'clock kickoff in Kansas City against the Chiefs, and they'll be, in a position where maybe the division title is on the line in this game. It very well could be. But having beaten the Chiefs at home back in Week 13, I think the Chiefs get them in Arrowhead. The Chiefs are one of the toughest teams to beat at home. It gets loud there in Arrowhead, and the Chiefs are going to have a really good defense if they stay healthy, and they made some good additions on offense. Like I said, this division is going to come down, in my opinion, to the Chiefs and the Raiders. Also give the Chargers a chance. I think the Broncos finally fall off and relinquish the title this year. Like I said, I think that the Chiefs are going to win this one. And so at that point, that would put the Raiders at 11-5, which would be a tremendous year for the Raiders. But that has them missing the playoffs, in my estimation, just slightly, by one game. Of course, 11-5 could be good enough to get in the playoffs, but it all depends on how the other teams finish. Some years it is good enough to go to the playoffs. Some years that's good enough to win your division. But then other years, you'll miss the playoffs with a winning record, even with double-digit wins. It does happen. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you think about the roster? And what do you think about the schedule and our predictions? How do you see the Raiders faring in 2015? And I apologize for the audio troubles. Sometimes when you're handling everything yourself, and then you got all these programs running, I guess it just kind of will shut down, and sometimes you lose a lot of work. That's just how it goes. But it's all it's all for the love of the sport. So I love doing it, and I appreciate you listening. So as I always say, thank you very much for listening, because it is greatly appreciated. And I hope you're having a good day, and have a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.